I'm particularly palatable this morning. Just 2 more minutes and then we'll get started, all right? My name is Douglas Williamson. I will be your host this morning. Welcome on behalf of our president and the members of the Jamaica Computer Society Council and the members of the Jamaica Computer Society. I'd like to welcome you to our symposium on the future of IT jobs. Welcome, everyone. Please put your hands together. Work out those applause. Let's get a little practice. Yes, yes, yes. We have assembled quite a presentation for you here today. I know that you will leave here today enriched, learning a lot about what's happening, what's trending today. The speakers are the leaders in the local industry and international industry of information technology. So I want you to welcome them when it's time to bring them up. Before we get started, I'm going to invite the Director of Information Technology from the Courtley Group, Mrs. Andrea Atkinson Perry, to bring a word of prayer for us. Please welcome her.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Could we just bow our head for a word of prayer? Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for actually taking all of us here safely this morning. Please open our hearts and our minds as we listen to the wealth of knowledge that will flow from these presenters. These are men and women that you have given talents that they're using for your glory. It is humble hearts and minds that we offer all to you, Heavenly Father, and we offer everything to you. Amen.
Thank you, Mrs. Atkinson Perry. And now we move on. As I said, my name is Douglas Williamson. I'll be your host this morning as we go through the symposium. I'm happy to be here. I just wanted to share with you, yesterday, Mr. President, I'm driving into work and across the news. This is real news now, not fake news, right? And a BBC report comes in, nothing to do with the election or anything like that. They're saying that Boeing has begun a project to produce the first pilotless commercial airliner. This was the 4th news item. All the fake news comes up first, and then the real news comes on at the bottom of the newscast. The first pilotless commercial airliner. And I was thinking about it. I went up and looked at the article, and turned out part of the reason why this was coming up now is that they're asserting that much of the technology already exists. And this is seen as the next leap forward in aviation. So everybody's nodding their heads right now, right? So at the last JCS event, when we talked about artificial intelligence just last week, I started to get a little concerned about my kids, right? My sons. I mean, what kind of world are they going to work in? What are their jobs going to look like? Particularly, I was really worried that they may not need CIOs anymore. So what am I going to do, right? So having this event is particularly timely. It's particularly welcomed to discuss. And I know for this generation coming up, what are the jobs going to look like that you are going to hold? How are you going to equip yourselves? And one of the demonstrations we saw last week that was really, really got me was when the IBM Watson was able to assist in the diagnosis of a cancer patient. And the oncologist was there saying, well, hey, if I had nothing else to do all day, maybe I would have known about this particular bit of research that produced this particular bit of medicine that would have worked for this particular patient. And that was really telling. So it's a brave new world, and we are here to discuss and open up about those questions that the technology is raising. So I know you will be well rewarded for your time here today, and I know that as a team, the JCS is alive again to participate and bring the voice of information technology community to Jamaica and to the world. Now, our current president has been leading somewhat of a renaissance of the society in the industry, leveraging his wide influence and reputation. Now, he's a very humble man, so he doesn't want me to talk about all of his influence, but many of us know that we wouldn't be here without the hard work, the dedication of purpose, and the generosity of Mr. Sheldon Powell, our president. That's your cue. You give him a round of applause for that. Boy, this crowd is very hard, you know. So I'm going to invite our president to come up and give us some opening remarks to get this symposium going. Mr. Sheldon Powell.
Thank you, Doug. Thanks. And you know what I like about Doug, we started on time, right? So I like that. And that is a practice that we're going to maintain, right? I want to welcome everybody, JCS members. How many people are JCS members right now? Paid up members. Okay, quite a few. So we have a lot of new people here who are looking to become members. So membership is only for IT professionals. We keep it simple, right? It's 6,000 Jamaican dollars for the year, or 5,000 for IT enthusiasts, and for students it's only $600 for the year, right? So you know why are we here? Well, first thing, if you recognize that you paid less than $8 to come here for those who are non-members, and for members it's maybe about $3 or $4, and for JCS student members it's actually free. And why is that so? Why are we able to do that? I mean, some of the speakers here, Jeff Wallington from Real Decoy has decided to sponsor this event. Bridget Collins, who's the university CIO, and that's for the regional CIO, because as you know, UE is actually in Barbados, everywhere, right? So she has a very wide portfolio, and she has agreed to sponsor this event as well. Donna Watson, who is the IT director from JPS, is also here, and JPS has also sponsored the event. Malaka Williams from Ingenuity is also one of the speakers, have also sponsored the event. Jim and B, of course. I mean, that's an easy one, and I give him, you know. And MS Tech Solutions, Mario Sparks. He's not here as yet, but he's a tech entrepreneur, and his story is actually very exciting. So look forward to his presentation. We also have Spur here, who is actually handling the registration. Young company, but they have an online registration system. So in the future, instead of using Eventbrite, I know that's the #1 tool, we can actually use our own local system and support the local market. And that's one of the things that we want to be doing here. Yes. Right. And we also have Jason Clark from Idea Lab, who's also a sponsor, helping out with all the registration. I really want to thank all the speakers, because you know I know it takes effort. You know we have to think about, even if you have 10 minutes, you spend at least 2 to 3 hours preparing to make sure you can actually impart knowledge. So I want to give just applaud all the speakers for the hard effort they would have put in. Yeah. Steve Boso is also here from Gartner. Now, Gartner, for those who know, they are actually the, I would have, for me, the #1 place for in terms of IT research, right? And when people are actually presenting, they normally refer to Gartner, right? So Steve Bosa, it's his 3rd time in Jamaica right now, and we went out yesterday, and he's really fallen in love with the island. He really is. He's a great guy, and he's very flexible as well, you know, because he's here because he's pushed for this to happen, right? So, and Gartner, for those who know, is the material. When you go on the internet trying to search, you know, I know there's a lot of free Gartner material that's out there, but the real good stuff you have to pay for. So what you're getting right here from him, probably, I don't want to say, but I can imagine his time is extremely valuable, and he has actually given it to us. So please, so welcome, Steve. And he's very, very approachable as well. So feel free to talk to him after his presentation, you know, get his email, you know, so good stuff. So why did I choose this topic? I mean, Doug, you spoke about it, but I was doing my own research. I have to try and prepare. As one of the roles that we have to do in terms of IT leaders, you have to be looking forward. I mean, you have the day-to-day problems, but you have to spend quite a bit of your time looking forward, right? So I read this article from the World Economic Forum on the future of jobs, employment skills and workforce strategy for the fourth industrial revolution. Now, the research was done in all of 2015 and came out in 2016, right? And the study was going from 2015 to 2020, so we're actually halfway there. And in reading the report, I mean, all the predictions seem to be coming through, and I think the pace of technology is actually moving a bit faster than they thought it would here. But no, that's still, in terms of how they interview, they interviewed the 100 largest global employers, representing 30 million employees across 9 broad industrial sectors in 15 major developing and emerging economies, right? Jamaica wasn't included, but I'm sure next time we'll make it there. So simple drivers of change. It's very important to pay attention to these things, because this is where they are. I don't want us to look at. I want to see what's happening as opportunities and not threats, because whenever there are threats, there are opportunities. So changing nature of work, flexible work. I said this was predicted in 2015, but the whole thing of co-working space, working remotely, and not working remotely from home, working remotely from anywhere in the world, right? That's really happening right now. The larger companies, based on what they're doing, is actually doing a lot of more outsourcing. So you find the larger companies are actually shrinking, right? And therefore, where are the opportunities there? Middle class in emerging markets. Now, the middle class at one time was more centered in terms of definition, in terms of mostly in probably United States, Canada, but in terms of emerging markets in Jamaica, throughout the Caribbean, throughout Asia, the emerging markets, it's growing, and the middle class is growing. So they have income to spend. So please pay attention to that. Climate change, natural resources. Well, some people think it's fake news, but trust me, the climate change thing is real, and therefore there are a lot of solutions that we will be looking in terms of how we should be protecting our planet. Geopolitical volatility. I'm sure they didn't realize, because the world is actually in turmoil right now, fast. I'm sorry to say. I mean, every week we hear about bombing and nations fighting and so forth. We need divine intervention right now. I was telling you, I really need that. But again, while that's happening, there are opportunities for tech. Privacy issues, that's big. There are a lot of people out there. I mean, KPMG put out something the other day and saying that Jamaica is not aware of the problem in terms of security and all of that. Everybody's putting all of these wonderful devices in their home, virtual assistants and all of that. There are opportunities right there in terms of making sure we can help people in terms of protecting themselves in their home, in their office, with their cars and so forth. Aging societies, people are actually living longer. What does that mean? Well, what does that mean to the workforce, where it's going to get tighter, because people know to fund their retirement. They can't retire at 65 anymore, right? So again, look at that. What does that mean? Maybe not everybody has tech savvy, so maybe needs programs to help the people when they reach that age to still be a part of society. Young demographics, emerging markets, women's economic power. Well, women are actually doing quite well, and they see that as something from 2015 and will continue to grow. Rapid urbanization, now that is key. Kingston is getting saturated right now, and this is a worldwide trend now. So people don't necessarily have to be looking to live in Kingston anymore, right? I mean, there are other areas that are coming up, a lot of developments going on. They also need actually tech solutions, because remember, they'll have to be working remotely in many cases, right? And we do have the highways now, so you actually could be deciding to work anywhere along that stretch going to O3S and Montego Bay, like a midpoint, and still probably get to work faster, or sometimes coming from maybe a Stony Hill in the traffic in the morning. In terms of technology, it's ranked as well in terms of, I think, from the other one, but mobile internet, processing power, big data, new energy supplies and technology, Internet of Things, that's huge. That's really, I think Ghana had predictions about some 20 million devices. That it has really surpassed that. Because I remember last year, I remember a friend, he had an umbrella that was on the internet. What happened is that he showed me when he left his umbrella anywhere, it actually beat him and, like it measured the distance between him and the umbrella and tell him that you have forgotten me. And shows him where it is. So he said he can't lose his umbrella. None of these things are just real. So the umbrella, and it was cheap as well. So everything, I think sometimes when Ghana predicted 20 million, it's gone way past that. Way past that. The robotics, autonomous transport, well that's really happening. That's really happening, right? Artificial intelligence, you spoke about the oncologists, because what happened with the oncologists, is that when you give like a Watson, so Watson will read journals. When I say read journals, because most journals are digitized. So, and maybe in a month you might even have maybe 50,000 journals coming up. And oncologist can read more than 20 journals for the month, because you might have other things to do. You might have family to take care of, you may want to go to the gym or something like that. While Watson is reading, you can read 100,000 journals. So we're talking about research of cases, right? Watson's going to have an advantage. No, again, it's not that we don't need an oncologist, but the oncologist needs to know how to make use of Watson. All right, in this report, just to summarize quickly what is happening. On the left-hand side, it's just showing in terms of the jobs that will be shrinking by 2020. So I'm not talking 5 years on. We're feeling the effect of this already. I know certain countries are blaming competition from other countries as a reason why it's shrinking, but no, the technology is what is actually replacing all these jobs. So it's not that these jobs actually absolutely replaced, however they're saying it's like shrinking. So office administration is going down by 4.7 million. And if you add up all of this here, it adds up to about 7.2 million of job loss over the next, call it 3 years now, right? And on the right side is where it's actually growing. And you notice computer and mathematical, architecture and engineering, sales and related is very healthy. So everybody should have to be thinking about sales as well. That is key. All right. What's not shown here is the medical field, because the medical field actually is remaining flat. It's remaining flat because of telemedicine and so forth, right? And things like Watson. But at the same time, on the other side, you have people living longer. So there's a balance effect going on in medicine. The skills that are there, I mean, just to show the definition of different abilities, basic skills, cross-functional skills. This report is actually, you should search them on the internet. In terms of time, I don't want to go through all of this, but the skills that are going to be very important going into 2020, cognitive abilities, that's growing, system skills, complex problem solving is key. Notice at the bottom here things like technical skills, physical abilities. So I guess when you're strong and all of that, it doesn't make that much of a difference. Well, I guess you get a robot to aid you, right? Yeah, man. So similar barriers to change. Well, why won't we act? So Jamaica as a country, we need to act. We can't ignore what's happening in the world and then leave our young people astray when, 5 years from now, they're leaving university, they can't get jobs. So we really have to need to act. But insufficient understanding of disruptive changes. Well, we're here, so everybody here understands that we go out and spread the word. Resource constraints. Yes, that is true, but at the same time, we can get together and overcome that barrier. Pressure from shareholders, short-term profitability. People are always thinking short-term. But again, to move us forward, move IT forward, we really have to think long-term. So I'm looking at the end of today, maybe have like through the JCS or other organizations can come on board and we'll have a plan to tackle this. And finally, in terms of report, some of the things that they were suggesting are very important in terms of what you can do about it. Invest in reskilling current employees. So I was reading about AT&T. They have a workforce that they know if they turn them out and made them redundant, they wouldn't have anywhere to work. So what they were choosing to do is actually reskill their employees instead of putting them out there. Support mobility and job rotation. That's also very important. Collaborate with educational institutions. That is key. JCS actually, we're doing a lot of work with all the major universities, but we want more private sector people to be doing that. And just in terms of, it's lower down here, but collaborate with other companies across industries, collaborate with other companies in the same industry. So as a nation, I'm looking for us in Jamaica, regardless of your think that you're a competitor or not, but if we're going to tackle this thing global, I think we should be working together. All right, thank you. That's it for me.
Please give him a warm round of applause. Something to think about. I'm definitely going to get a copy of that report. What is driving the demand side pressure for the quest for new talent? What are the emerging domains of expertise that leading CIOs and leading CEOs will invest their time and cash? How will the conversation be elevated for skills and talent that will create a new mindset and be able to participate on the new landscape? These are the questions that face the IT workforce of the future. We are honored today to have with us Mr. Steve Buzzo from the Gartner Group. He's an executive partner of in the Southern region, and he applies subject matter expertise to deliver services and solutions to CIO members like Sheldon that best address the key members and key organizational issues that they face. In his previous role, Mr. Buzzo managed all aspects of technology, including strategy, operations, application development, IT finance, project management. He's been with Gartner for about a year, but he has 36 years experience in the industry, working with companies like Oriental Trading, 1-800-Flowers, and MetLife at the VP, CIO, and senior VP level. He has a master's degree in computer science, and he's here with us today to talk to us about the future workforce. Please welcome him.
Thank you so much, Douglas. I appreciate that. And thank you, my esteemed client, Sheldon. I have the honor of serving him as an executive partner. As Douglas mentioned, I'm Steve Buzzo. I'm an executive partner at Gartner. He described what we do. Gartner, you may not know, is the world's leading research and technology advisory company in the world. Actually, we just bought CEB, if any of you work with CEB, a corporate executive board for $1 billion, so we're growing very, very rapidly. And we serve business leaders around the world, and we're very, very excited to serve companies here in Jamaica. By the way, as Sheldon mentioned, I've come to Jamaica just 3 times in the last year now, and I have to tell you, I am just overwhelmingly impressed with the state of technology here in Jamaica. You know, I shouldn't be surprised, but I was surprised. And you don't take the back seat to anybody that I work with. I have 24 clients in the United States, Jamaica, and the Cayman Islands. And the technology in Jamaica, I think, is second to none. It really is very, very impressive. Sheldon is right. I have fallen in love with the culture. It's just amazing, and the people. I mean, I'm just so incredibly impressed. So just thank you for that opportunity. I'm just thrilled. I bring warm regards from our president, Donald Trump. He says you are to make JCS great again. I said, Mr. President, JCS is already great again, thanks to the leadership and all of you. At which point he said, you're fired. Would you ever expect to have the leader of The Apprentice as the President of the United States? Amazing. But I'm very, very excited about this topic. We'll move fairly quickly, but there's always an opportunity to follow up for sure. So by all means, you know, I'll pass along my email, and we have a lot of research that we can share with you. But I wanted to start with, and a lot of this has already been spoken about, but the future is here, and the time for action is now. It's amazing what's happening in the world today, and sometimes we don't even realize that. One profound example, GE Capital. GE Capital, as many of you probably know, GE is arguably maybe one of the best companies in the world, certainly one of the largest in the top 5. A very, very big company. GE Capital at one point represented 40% of their revenue. It was their crown jewel, far and away. 40% of their revenue, $100 billion company, so we're talking about maybe $40 billion in revenue. Amazing on an annual basis. Last year, 2015, they sold off the last vestiges of GE Capital. Why would something like that happen? Why would you sell off your crown jewel? That is extremely profound. The reason for that was they realized that they would most likely be disrupted. Conventional finance was no longer going to be predominant, and GE Capital was that bold to sell it off. The future is now. That's how dramatic it is. And we better get ready to make sure that we can accommodate the needs of the future. GE Capital then went on to invest in 3D printing, this additive manufacturing that they have. They bought a company in Germany. They're at $300 million right now. They make body parts. They make parts for jet engines. And it turns out that those parts are 30% lighter than conventional ion technology that was manufactured in factories. The future is here. It's amazing. They're going to be about $1 billion in the not too distant future. So the future is very, very much here. Capital One is hiring 80 artificial intelligence people right now as we speak for robotics process automation, robo-advisor for wealth management, and what have you. I don't know if any of you see the announcement about Apple Home? You see that? Isn't that incredible? That's all artificial intelligence and machine learning. Natural language processing in your home. It's only going to get more and more predominant. So the future is very, very much here. Autonomous vehicles. Never a day goes by that we don't hear more about autonomous vehicles. Apple, technology company, just got approval to test their cars. A technology company in California. The future is very, very much here. The new Ford CEO, the old Ford CEO was forced out about a month ago. I don't know if anybody saw that in the press. He was an not old, he's a relatively young man, but he actually, believe it or not, was from the automotive industry. Ford recognized that that wasn't going to cut it for the future. You know who they hired as the next CEO? The head of innovation. There was an innovation group within Ford, just to show you how the landscape is changing, how dramatic it really is. The future is here. The 747 today sends back down a terabit of that data every single hour. It's impossible for any human being to read that. You need machine learning to be able to process that kind of knowledge. Machine learning is only the things that humans do, but just don't have enough people to do it. That's what machine learning really is. So the future is very, very much here. I mentioned robo-advisors, RPA, robotic process automation. More and more routine tasks are being automated in our banks and all kinds of industries right now, in our accounting firms, our consulting firms. That's happening predominantly throughout the world. We do a lot of advising on that. At our symposium this year, one of the key themes is going to be blockchain. There's a speaker, keynote speaker, who's going to speak about this. His notion is that blockchain is where the internet was in 1990. That's how explosive it's going to be in the next 5 years. None of us really see that yet, but are we missing a big opportunity? That's something that we have to think about for any of you that are familiar with blockchain. Very, very exciting. The future is here, and the time for action is now. We need to adjust. Drones, working with a state and local government that uses drone technology. Who would ever expect that? What do they use it for? They mount infrared cameras on it, and they scan buildings to detect the potential of a fire. By the way, Douglas mentioned medical tech, med tech, which is a big, big emerging field right now. They did an experiment with MRI machines that tested women for breast cancer. And they discovered by using artificial intelligence, they were able to increase the detection of the incidence of breast cancer 1 year in the future by 40%. So it's saving lives. Technology is actually saving lives, and that's just the beginning when you think about it with medtech. And then Dileton actually has a completely automated mining process. They drop down a device on a mine, and there are no humans involved at all, and they do mining. Dileton. I don't know if anybody's heard about that. The future is here, and the time for action is now. So by 2020, this is really startling, your company will either lead a digital business you have created or be part of one created by someone else. Or you'll be out of business. It's that serious. This is a call to action. And we don't have to look too far to see the businesses that have gone out of business, that are no longer in business because they weren't able to keep up. And I submit that that's because they didn't hire the right people. They weren't forward-thinking and they weren't aggressive enough. AOL, Blockbuster, Nokia, Kodak, Circuit City. We all know about these. It's amazing. And when you think about it, AOL was the first internet company ever. Why weren't they the next Google? They just weren't forward-thinking. They didn't hire the right people. So there's a call to action for each one of us. We cannot allow that to happen to ourselves. CEOs rank workforce as their number 3 priority, and you would think that number 1, number 2 are probably sales and profits. So it's not surprising. Whereas CIOs rank skills and resources as their number 1 barrier. They will not be successful if they don't have the right people. We all know to achieve excellence, it's all about people, process, and tools. But you could say people, process, tools, and people. You need to start with the best people, and you need to finish with the best people if you really want to be successful. And that's what this presentation is all about. So what I'd like to cover today are 3 key topics. First is what will drive the demand side, the pressure that's on us on the demand side to hire the very, very best people. What's going to drive that? Second thing we'll speak about, in which emerging domains, there's 3 domains that we want to speak about, that we need to focus on as we move forward in the future. And the third piece is I want this to be a call to action. I want to give you some very, very practical things you can do today to make sure that we're preparing for the future more and more. Does that make sense? Great. Okay, so the first one, what's driving this on the demand side? Here's pressure point number 1. In 10 years, the skills and knowledge in our organizations will bear little resemblance to those we have today. 10 years, I think that's not aggressive enough. I think it's going to be 5 to 7 years, but this is from one of our best analysts. But let's take this as a guidepost, but even in 10 years, we need to start preparing now. So that's pressure point number 1. Pressure point number 2, by 2018, 7 out of 10 jobs will require skills in science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM. And we know we're not educating enough folks in those areas. Even to this day, that's one of the biggest news items of the day. And in the university setting, we need to really challenge our universities. We're going to speak how we can partner with universities to solve this problem. Pressure point number 3. More than 70% of people across all age groups want to work with organizations that are digital leaders or digitally enabled. We know more and more of the digital natives are entering the workforce. Well, by the way, they're going to be the ones that choose the companies that they want to work for. Obviously, it's not going to be up to us to decide which ones we want to bring on. So it behooves us to make sure we're as digitally savvy as possible, because we're not going to be able to attract those digital natives who have been brought up in that workforce, in the workforce of the future, brought up in current age. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that ad of a little 1-year-old child with a magazine open, a paper magazine open, going like this. Trying to get it to, I'll show you a video in a little while on YouTube where we actually have electronic paper. We can actually do that in another year or so. But that's a digital native. That's a good example of digital native. Everything and anything they do is digital today. I have grandchildren, and they're brought up in the digital age. It's amazing what they can do. They can do much, much more than I can. It's kind of like we were brought up with automobiles and television and what have you. So that's pressure point number 3. Does this resonate with everybody? Makes sense? Yeah. So how do we sync up business and talent? There's a timing problem that we have right now. We need to figure out a way to sync this up. Scenario planning can range anywhere from 5 years to 25 years. And scenario planning is really nothing more than being prepared for the future, doing probability analysis and statistical analysis on what is the customer of the future going to look like. And you can do that as much as 25 years out, but most people do, 41% of them do it within 5 years. Another 47% do it in 5 to 10 years. That's probably the best horizon. But is that in sync with other planning processes that we have? Strategic planning typically is only about 5 years, obviously. And then talent planning is usually less than a year. We're completely out of sync. Actually, 59% of the people that we surveyed said that they did their talent planning within a year. So we all know we have FTE budgets for a year. We never go 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, nor do we assess what those talent needs are in the future. So we're out of sync. We're dramatically out of sync. So that's one of the most important things we can do, is make sure that we sync up our planning horizons and make sure that our plans for the workforce of the future are in sync with our strategic planning and our scenario planning. So the gap in timelines could spur us to do one of two things. We can crawl in the corner into a fetal position and give up, or it could make us much, much more agile. And I submit to you that it's going to make us much, much more agile. To position skills and talent as drivers of growth and innovation, we use scenario-like models to envision the future. So we need to start thinking a little bit more about the future. You know, it's interesting that machine learning has been around since the 50s. So we had plenty of time to plan for that, and obviously planning too early would have been a mistake as well. But sometimes technologies take a long time to grow and to emerge. Other times they emerge overnight. There's an inflection point in technology. Suddenly, like cloud computing is an example, we've been hearing about that for 15 years, suddenly you need to be on the cloud. There's an inflection point. So we need to take that into consideration when we do our scenario planning. It's very, very important. So it's time to reorient our center of gravity. And we often think of our center of gravity operating in 5 domains, or digital transformation, if you will, which is really what the future is all about, operates in 5 domains. It operates in information systems. And many of us know our information systems are legacy. We have to get that albatross off of our neck and somehow move into the state-of-the-art technologies. But how we compute in our environment is vitally important. And the systems that we use, systems of record, systems of innovation, all of these systems have to be taken into consideration and modernized as quickly as possible if we are to be prepared for the future. By the way, many of these systems have to use analytics for workforce planning, which there are many, many tools that we can use to do that. Second domain is customers. We need to continue to be customer obsessed. The way we interact with our customers is changing radically, and as I mentioned earlier, the millennials and the digital natives are going to tell us how to interact with them. It's not going to be something that we're going to be able to dictate. So we need to do predictive analytics and figure out how to satisfy that customer of the future. Very, very important ingredient in the second domain. The third domain is the physical world. And Douglas mentioned the umbrella. Sheldon mentioned the umbrella, yeah, that was fascinating. And I had actually an umbrella like that at one point, but then I lost my iPhone, so I lost the umbrella as well. Do we have something for that? When I was younger, I would lose my glasses so often, my wife gave me a strap that I could put, so it would just hang on my, my neck here, and I wouldn't lose my glasses. I was in Mexico with a client one time, and the lens fell out, and I lost the lens. She just loved that one, so I don't think technology is going to help me. But our customers are going to be radically different in the future, so it's something that we really have to pay attention to now. And then ecosystems. Ecosystems are the entities that we all deal with on a day-to-day basis. In banking, possibly it's the Federal Reserve, the Reserve Bank, where we do funds transfers, or other banks that we do funds transfer with, the APIs that allow us to interface with each of these partners and customers for that matter. Those are the ecosystems. Those are going to become increasingly more important as we migrate into the future. And all of this, as we know, centers around business intelligence and analytics. That's really the very, very core, the intelligence that we have. And by the way, the data is so massive, as I mentioned, the 747 as an example, 1 terabit an hour, there's 50,000, 75,000 planes in the air at any given point in time, not to mention the other 100,000 that are on the ground. How are you ever possibly going to process that data? Humans can do it, there's just not enough humans around to do it. Machine learning, artificial intelligence are the answers. As that data increases from the umbrellas, from the iPhones, from the refrigerators, from the dishwashers, we're going to have to figure out ways to process it. Some of it's not important. Other pieces of information are vitally important, like the 747 as an example. I wanted to show you a video quickly, if I could. I don't know if anybody had a chance to read Jeff Bezos' letter to his shareholders in April 2017. I highly encourage you to do this, but let me show you a quick snippet from that conference that he had when he issued that letter.
Okay, I think this one is a very important question. What does day 2 look like?
Okay, let me just emphasize this before so you understand what he's speaking about. Jeff Bezos made a very, very big point, and it's extremely relevant in terms of our jobs of the future. He wanted to make sure that Amazon was always a day one company, not a day two company. So he made a big point about that in his letter to his shareholders. A day one company is a company that's very, very hungry and innovative. The Apple, as Steve Jobs was in his garage developing the Macintosh. Bill Gates, as he developed DOS in his garage. Those are day one companies, extremely hungry. Day two companies, AOL, Yahoo are examples of that. We have to make sure that we're always day one company, or a day one company. Jeff describes what a day two company is. That's the question that was asked.
What does day two look like? I know the answer to this. Day two is stasis, followed by irrelevance, followed by excruciating, painful decline, followed by death. And that is why it is always day one.
So how many of you are day one companies? How many of you are day two companies? You know, we all fall into that trap of being a day two company. That's not going to cut it for the future. Is Amazon a day one company? Have you ever seen a company more aggressive? They're amazing. They're so far out there. And this is PowerPoint hell, but I couldn't resist putting this up on the screen because it's so salient. If you read his letter, there's more about machine learning and artificial intelligence than any CIO on the planet speaks of. And this is Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon. Just read a few points. AI, at Amazon, we've been engaged in the practical application of machine learning for many years now. Some of this work is highly visible. Our autonomous Prime Air delivery drones, the Amazon Go convenience store. I don't know if anybody's seen that yet. They call them the Go stores. You go into the store, you shop with anything that you want, you just walk out the door. And it's artificial intelligence and cameras that detect what you've purchased, believe it or not. And they're rolling these out so the future is now. It's something that we really need to embrace. They use machine vision to eliminate checkout lines, and Alexa, our cloud-based AI assistant. And we've all heard about Alexa. They can't keep Alexa on the shelves. That's all artificial intelligence and machine learning. Much of what they do with machine learning happens beneath the surface. Machine learning drives our algorithms for demand forecasting. They use it for everything. Product search ranking, product and deals recommendation, merchandising placements, fraud detection, and on and on and on. It's absolutely amazing what Amazon is doing. The future is here. It's now. We need to prepare for the future. So let me deal with issue number 2. We spoke about what's driving the demand. I think that's clear. Is that clear to everybody? What's driving the demand? It's amazing what's happening, right? That video, I think, is insightful. So in which emerging domains of expertise will leading CIOs and CIOs invest across multiple dimensions? So what do we do about this? What's the next step? We want to be very, very practical about this if we can. So what we'd like to suggest is there's 3 separate domains, and there's 9 specific areas in each of those domains that we need to focus on. I'm not going to go into too much detail because we don't have that much time, but let me just go through the domains. The first domain, obviously, is technology. We have to have the skills and the resources to handle this new and emerging technology environment. You know, one of the questions I was asked when I came to work at Gartner is, what do you think the future of the CIO is? Good question, the way things are going. One thing we do know is that the CIO has to be more of a business-focused leader. It has to be focused more on innovation and almost have his IT organization run by a COO, Chief Operating Officer. But the future of the CIO is very, very bright. Very, very bright. Yeah, we could read the slide of relief. And that's the answer I gave, and Gartner agreed with me wholeheartedly. They've done much, much research in this area. But we would be remiss if we eliminated business concepts. That's the second domain that we have to focus on. So when we're hiring for the skills of the future, it's not just IT. Sometimes we have a tendency just to fall into that trap. We have to be perfectly aligned with the business as well. So business concepts is a second domain. And then finally, human engagement. This whole notion of the customer of the future, what is it that the customer wants and how are we going to address their concerns? That's absolutely paramount. So early movers invest in 9 areas of technology and 9 areas of the other domains as well. So we've spoken about most of these. I won't belabor it. We're running out of time. But the Internet of Things, exploding, even in umbrellas, as Sheldon mentioned, amazing. Robotics, but not just robotics in our factories, robotics in our offices now. Remote process automation is a very, very big technology emerging very, very rapidly. We spoke about machine learning, data sciences and analytics. That is going to be the intelligence that drives everything we do in the future. How do we predict what the customer of the future is going to look like? Very, very important that we focus on that. Both executive role, and that's emerging in the executive workplace as well. So big data and analytics are permeating every aspect of the business as we speak. It's not just in IT anymore. So it's in the executive role. There's a hybrid business and IT profiles, from services to strategy, new competencies. It permeates every aspect of our business. It's just unbelievable. And then there's human engagement. Elon Musk, believe it or not, became the CEO of his 3rd company. And what they do is they put probes on the human brain, believe it or not, neuroscience. And the whole idea is that in 5 years, we are going to be communicating without speech. Because speech slows us down, it's just too slow. Now figure out how that one's gonna work, but it's that crazy. He's the CEO of that company, and he's been wildly successful as a CEO of Tesla and SpaceX. Just amazing what he's doing. So he must not be too far from that. Gamification, health and education is huge as well, and on and on and on. Immersive experiences, we're all aware of this. Virtual and augmented reality, perception of physical presence in non-physical world. All of this is happening as we speak. Multi-dimensions, multi-senses, programming and art design. And then finally, the 3rd domain is one that we can't ignore as well, with business concepts. That alignment with our business, IT becomes more and more a business partner and is better and better aligned with the business. And we focus on these domains. Algorithms are vitally important as we speak today. How do we think about things that we're processing right now? Trust models, of course, smart cities. Talk about that a little bit. Optimized city operations. More and more people are moving into urban environments. How do we deal with that, and how do we satisfy their needs? New revenue channels. I don't know if we have it here in Jamaica, but if you want to get home 15, 20 minutes earlier, we have a lot of traffic in Florida as well. You take the express lane, it automatically charges you $10. You never even think about it. Smart cities, and it's an additional revenue source for the cities as well. Contextual real-time information will be available, maps and things like that for subways or mass transit, and then smart spaces. So we focus on these areas in each of these disciplines, manufacturing, and we've highlighted one of the 9 areas in each of these domains for each of these businesses. Banking, so we get that fine. Intelligence, we don't have time to go through all of these. And let me show you another video, the future of technology. This is kind of interesting. amazing, isn't it? Future is here. Time to act is now. I'll finish up quickly. I think I'm just about out of time. Let's get this. Yeah. Isn't that fascinating? Amazing. So, what's the call to action? What are we going to do about this? This is a very, very exciting. We can crawl in the corner in a fetal position, as I mentioned earlier, or we could be more agile. We could be aggressive about what we need to do in the future. And that's the third copy here. 5 steps to prepare for the future, unlike the past. Elevate skills and talent to a true priority today. Make this priority number 1. It's people, process, and tools to achieve excellence. Do more of leadership and responsibility. Focus on that with our staff. Impact business outcomes. Change agent. We need to be not only a change agent, we need to be excited about being a change agent. We need to innovate in our environments. We need engagement and diversity. That's one of the really true answers to the problems that we have with limited staff. We need to embrace challenges with excitement. I think Sheldon or Douglas said earlier, we could crawl in the corner or we could use it as a huge opportunity. Every threat creates another opportunity for us. Stop being administrative and bureaucratic. We've got to break down those barriers as quickly as possible. Cut through the politics. It's just not going to work in the brave new world we're entering in, where stress and pressure and workload are everything. Personnel and workforce are an issue, business as usual. We need to change quickly. Step 2, build a long runway for skills and talent. In the short term, make the present workforce effective. So we can't ignore the present. Let's not plan so much for the future that we're ignoring the present. We need to address that as well in the short term. We need to identify the knowledge and talent that will drive the potential of the business in the midterm. And then finally, we need to plan long term to make the present workforce into a different workforce for a different future. And let's make sure we understand what that future is going to be. And then we can do these 3 things: experiment with new talent and work models. And we're thinking about those that are widely adopted, self-directed teams. Zappos is a good example of that today. It seems like that's working out very well, which is increasing. An Amazon company right now, which is interesting. Acquisitions and techquisitions, scrums and agile environment. And then moderately adopted virtual centers of excellence. And then finally, narrowly adopted hackathons. Let's do more hackathons and digital acceleration teams and what have you. So that's step 3. Step 4, bolster talent pipelines through universities. We need to align ourselves much more closely with universities, right? University of the West Indies, right, Bridget? And make sure that they know exactly the talent. I mean, we're doing them a disservice by not aligning ourselves with them with mentoring programs and adjunct professor programs and things like that. We need to do more and more of that. Co-sponsor university hackathons. Do it together. Don't just do it in a vacuum. We want to share this with everybody. Find out what's possible with maker labs and innovation, build out professional business skills, and give students inside looks. And then finally, build a trusted alliance with HR strategists. 65% of them are where they need to be. We need to get the rest of them there as well. We need to think big and be bold. Workforce analytics is critical, workforce planning, digital workforce, smart machines, and development. And here's a couple of recommendations: inject skills and talent, build scenario planning, work with business peers, expand experimentation, and be bold. We need to really be aggressive with this. So here's what you need to do. Monday morning, post those 3 domains and let people ask you, what the heck are you talking about there? With business alignment or technology. And start fleshing that out. Let's start having the conversation now. Next 90 days, build skill and talent scenario for the next 2, 5, and 10 years. Let's at least make a projection on what the skills we think we'll need in the future. And then finally, rebalance your expertise investments by domain and by risk profile. And we can do that. And here's some research. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Appreciate it.
Now give it up for Steve. The future is here, the time for action is now. Although, if we did get neuroscience and chips embedded in the head, I would need a firewall. Yeah, I got some pretty bad stuff going on in here, Steve. So I'm gonna need some help with that. Now I'm really excited. I mean, you know what I'm getting from this presentation is the reasons why I got into IT in the first place, the excitement, the potential for change. I mean, this is eons ago for most of you, but it really is a time for action. And you know, that leads us a great segue into our next presenter. And but before I talk about that, just want you guys to know we're gonna have another presenter now, and then we're gonna have our guest speaker. The minister is scheduled to be here after Jeff makes his presentation, and then we'll take a break, and then go into some panel discussions. So just an FYI. But as I was saying, I'm very excited for the technology that's happening right now, and our next speaker, whose topic is titled "Local Rules, Global Game: Strategies for Jamaican IT Talent Career Success." Now, I have a formal introduction for you here, Jeff. But if you pardon me, I will just share with you that when I came to visit Real Decoy a month or two ago, I think it was, and I looked around, and the first thought that came into my mind was, man, I wish I was 20 again, and I could be working here. This is the kind of place that I would have wanted to have been working at. A high energy, vibrant, youthful organization that's just churning out business value. That's Real Decoy, and I want you to welcome their co-founder, Executive Vice President, Mr. Jeff Waddington. Please welcome him.
Good morning, everybody. Morning. Oh, you're still awake. Good, good. So yeah, I'm not gonna be nearly as positive or as happy, but hopefully I'll deliver a bit more of a straight message about what we're facing here as we try to grow the local, if you're trying to grow a local career here in Jamaica. First off, Real Decoy. We've now been in business for 10 years. Bet you didn't know we were here. We've been primarily working, thank you. Our customers were overseas, and so locally we obviously knew that some professors at UWI, some professors at UTech, but the rest of the island really didn't know who we were. So it's only recently that we've actually started really coming out locally and talking to business and talking to the public about what we do. We have 60 plus technology professionals here in Kingston. We're up on Halfway to Your Road. These are some of the clients we work with. As I said, we primarily work with customers overseas, doing a wide variety. It was interesting you said Oriental Trading was one of your previous engagements. It turns out you're actually one of our customers at one point. So this is one of the challenges as we talk about careers for the future, right? You got to talk about what kind of timeline are we talking about. There's some people at the back, obviously, who are just starting out their careers, or people in the front who are sort of at the pinnacle of their careers. Funny how that works, eh? The further you come to the front, the more senior you get. And Jason. So let's look, let's see, can we survive the next 5 years, assuming we can get through the next 5 years and the horrors that come along with it. Yes, I showed pictures of dead babies as part of my presentation, because the reality of the geopolitical situation today means that we're talking a theoretical future that that we can look forward to, and we have climate change on the other side that's going to lead to immense changes in the world that we can't necessarily predict at this point. So a lot of this is based on the best view we have from here today, and we don't know when it's going to happen, but the zombie apocalypse is coming. So I'm going to talk about 3 different categories here. I'm actually going to only speak to the 2, dealing with if you're thinking of building a career in products, whether that's hardware products or SaaS type offerings, people who are looking to build careers in the services space, some places dear to our heart because that's where we operate. And the operations stuff, if you've been around JCS for a while, I've spoken to this topic before, so the future of the operations when it comes to cloud and DevOps impacts, we're not going to talk about today. So this is a very interesting / scary slide. This is, even though we're only looking at sort of 2015 data as the latest point there's a very distinct trend happening in the marketplace today, which is product revenue is on the decline at a rapid rate. People are paying less for the products they're buying, but the bigger trend is they're moving it into SaaS-based offerings. This is a current trend. In the next 5 years, even though SaaS offerings have been around since 2009, they've been, you know, the Salesforces of the world, we're really starting to see a very rapid diversion between the traditional sales model of selling software licenses and the SaaS-based offerings. So it is more than likely that you, if you're building a career in software development, you're going to be building SaaS offerings. You're not going to be building the traditional products. And this is causing chaos for the big software companies. So anyone who's doing software, the problem is there's lots of revenue growth. There's tons of money going into SaaS, and nobody's making money at it. Very few are making money at it. So we're in a point in history where software companies don't know what they're doing because their whole model of selling a license and charging maintenance for that license. The hardware today, we talk about Internet of Things, it's self-diagnosing, it can tell you what's wrong, it can order its replacement parts, you can, the human intervention that was traditionally there is going away. The data, you no longer have to maintain large data stores, your data on your devices. If it goes bad, your data's in the cloud anyways, just ship a new piece of hardware, it's done. The world where we had a lot of people working in that sort of maintenance and fixing of equipment really is going away as well. So building a career around being a hardware technician is really moving more towards a world where you just ship a new part. Scared? No? I'm so different than Steve. I'm like the negative nanny in here. I'm like, oh, this is so bad. This is the this is another big one. I think it was Sheldon had on a slide about sales, IT sales. I always used to talk to some high school kids, and I'd say, what is the top paying position in a technology company? And they'd be like, CEO. Everyone wants to be CEO. I'm like, no, the top salesperson can totally make more money than the CEO, the CIO, anyone else. Sales is the path to riches in the technology sector, or it was. One of the challenges you have is when you start selling subscription-based software, right? I'm selling a monthly subscription to software. You no longer have that $1 million sale. You have that huge amount where you're getting your commission check and you're going out and buying a fancy car and a house and a boat. You're now selling a $100 a month subscription to that same service. So the sales compensation models that made sales a wickedly attractive place for people who really wanted to make money in the technology sector, it's being thrown on its head. And there are companies who are still using the old compensation models for their sales team, and they're finding it's driving that loss that they're in right now because the sales model has changed. So if you're interested in a sales career, you really aren't going to be spending as much time on that upfront sales piece. You're going to be spending a lot more time in retention, and the activities required for retention are substantially different than the activities required for sales. So if you want to, you can still get a career in sales, but you're going to be more focused on the business enablement of people using a cloud service rather than the actual sale of a software license. This is the other one, and the people at the front will perhaps appreciate this. Because we're moving to the SaaS model, the person who's in charge of the operating budgets, as opposed to capital budgets, is taking over the power. So you, as capital budget holders, right, people who own the ability to buy things in the IT side, are suddenly finding themselves up against a marketing director with a credit card who's going out and subscribing to a service online and taking away IT's role within that transaction. Maybe they'll come and see you if they want single sign-on or something, but otherwise they're off on their own and they're calling the shots. And the old days where, IT and CIOs and the teams would do feature bake-offs and do all the technology assessment is now coming out of our hands, is moving into the hands of someone with a credit card. And we're really seeing in certain parts of it, the HR system, HRMS type systems, the marketing systems, they're some of the early adopters, CRM, Salesforce things. They're moving off on their own, and they're moving out of the IT space into the actual business units, which is a substantial change for those of us who are used to IT holding all the cards. Now they're all distributed in other teams. So, don't worry, it gets better. But the net flow of IT jobs, so what we're seeing is the days where you had someone on site to manage your servers or your networks really is gone. If you haven't yet seen those jobs move to a managed services provider like T-Tech, they're going there. But the other thing that we're also seeing is when Office 365 comes out and the actual vendors start providing the service directly, even they're now trying to take aim at those who are providing this sort of consolidated service, and they're coming in and providing it straight from the vendor. So it is upsetting everything that we knew to be the state of affairs in IT and the jobs associated with it. This one factor of software as a service coming to bear. So, it's not, you know, if our jobs aren't going to be in necessarily those areas where they're going away, maybe we should be building software as a service, right? That's locally, you sit here, got a team of talented young graduates coming out of UE and UTech and saying, we're going to build our own offering. Makes sense, right? If we can't beat them, let's join them. If you want to compete in this space, you need one thing. Anyone want to know what that is? What is it? Money, 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 money. This is where it starts getting tricky for us trying to build a local software business in Jamaica, whether it's SaaS or the traditional product model. I zoomed in here just so we could see. That's us here in Jamaica. And that yellow shade means we're down towards the low end of attractiveness for venture capital. We're somewhere in the range of where you might find yourself in Kazakhstan or Botswana, not really in the top tier places where venture capital and private equity is available. And you can see it when you actually look at the actual numbers. Here's where the venture capital is in the world. Not surprisingly, Silicon Valley, Boston are the two main areas. And this one over here is the total venture capital. Over here is per capita, which changes substantially. So you have a big city like London, they may have a lot of venture capital, but per capita it might actually be smaller, right? So you see the cities that are true tech hubs get a lot of the venture capital. We're not on that list yet. And then it gets worse. So if you want to start, and this is, I'm only trying to show that the software playing field is not equal. And we kind of inherently know that, but here in Jamaica, the cards are stacked against us. So Canada, I'm up in Canada, I get $100,000 investment. Yay. We're gonna make some product. Now I take that $100,000 investment, which is usually done in US dollars, and I get the exchange rate. So I got $135,000 spent, not bad. But this is where it gets ugly. The government will refund my R&D costs for a product to the tune of $92,350 on that same $135,000. Uh-oh. So that means I have, if I'm founding the same software business, the same idea, and the same investment in Canada, I got $227,000 to spend on salaries out of my $100,000. Now you can add on, you know, matching training funds. If I hire a recent grad, I can get subsidies up to $35,000. Like these are great numbers that mean that you see why companies are building their R&D facilities for products in this jurisdiction. On Jamaica, on the other hand, I get my $100,000, and I don't know about everyone else, but at Realty we pay in US dollars locally because we can't keep up with the inflation, so we pay in US dollars. I'm looking for what we get as an advantage for that. You know, we're not making money, so there's no way to get a discounted tax rate or anything. But then we started getting taxed. So we take $100,000 and they start taking away some of that money to begin with. So I got asset tax, and this recently, brand new, is this non-refundable GCT on benefits, which just came, you know, it just makes it that much more difficult to compete, because even though I'm not making money, I'm not talking about tax rates, profit rates, that kind of thing. I'm not talking about what you charge in terms of deductions on payroll. I'm just talking raw taxes of a money-losing product business, and I'm already behind, right? So on one side, I've got substantial multiplication of my original investment. On the other side, I have someone trying to figure out ways to eat away at that dollar. And it's from this that you understand it's not an equal playing field. Because if you look at government tax instead, I'm not promoting Canada here by any means, it is one of all of those red countries have tax incentives for R&D expenditures. So everywhere you see red is a country that will somehow, either through allowing you to deduct faster the costs of capital expenditures, or have super rates at which you can recover costs on IP. There's all sorts of incentive programs around the world. I didn't blow up the size of Jamaica this time, but it's not right. It's not on that list, unfortunately. So, if you're looking to join a startup company or to found a startup company to do product development, because let's not forget, in this one, this only happens if it's a product that you're building. If I'm providing service, that goes away. So the competitiveness on the product side is very high. The competitiveness on the services side is actually much more reasonable. Does that make sense? So, it is not, I'm just saying, the cards are stacked against us here in Jamaica. It's not that it's impossible. We have organizations, Startup Jamaica, we have a number of hackathons, user groups. Idea Lab here, I just met today, you know, putting together spaces, collaboration spaces where entrepreneurs can come together. All of the things that can be done are being done, right? We do have some capital, right? But I have to say, the capital that's required, even the local capital that's required to fund a high-tech startup is different than the capital used to fund any other kind of business. So the loss rates on those, you know, the numbers of successes you need to have and the returns on those are much different than you have in traditional businesses. So the traditional angel investors who would invest in your business up the street are different than high-tech angel investors, but there are some. The diaspora, especially, we have young people who have gone to Silicon Valley or have connections there who can actually put companies on the map in those places. Those are happening. But the reality is that a lot of people, if they're looking to build careers in software or software as a service, are going to be migrating. And that pattern will continue until we figure out how we're going to be able to build a system for them to stay here. So technology services. Okay, that was kind of negative, right? It's not all negative. There's still some good coming. So in this new SaaS world, where essentially everything you want to do can be subscribed to, right? Either full systems or as pieces of systems, there are opportunities, right? If you've got all these services, you're gonna have to integrate them, right? They're not gonna sit there on their own. They're gonna be integrated into business processes. They're gonna be integrated into with other systems. The custom development one that we're gonna put AngularJS, which you know is a technology, is yesterday I saw a good demonstration from one of our guys who was essentially, he built an interface and it looked like one program, but on the back end, it was an Angular thing, and it was pulling data, and it was essentially a commerce site that had no actual system backing it up. It was entirely calling other systems on the back end, but it felt like a coherent experience to me on the front end. And that's really what building systems going forward is going to look like. If you're living in this SaaS world, you're really going to be consuming a bunch of services, integrating them together, and presenting a user experience that's top-notch. So that's really interesting. And the other thing that's going to be tough, and it kind of speaks a bit to what Steve was saying, is the business outcome optimization, right? We're investing all this money into technology. People that want to provide services to help people actually achieve business outcomes, where business outcomes are the need, those are in high demand. And it means that people who are following technical career paths can't be solely focused on technology. They have to be looking at the business side as well. Got a soundtrack. That's good. So, how do you compete in the services world? High quality experience. Who knows why I put this picture here? Anyone? No? No? Jimi Hendrix? No? Man, it's a young crowd. All right. So I'm going to speak through a moment. This is Mitzi. Mitzi works at Really Quick. She came to us straight out of UTech. And so you say, coming out of UTech, you've got a couple of technologies in your belt, right? How much, what in the marketplace can we achieve, can we get for those talents, right? And honestly, when you're first coming out of school, the reality is not much. And it's not a knock on the universities, it's not a knock on anything. You need actual industry experience in order to create that value. So she had a couple of technologies. Now, this is where it gets interesting. She's been with us since 2010. She's learned a few technologies along the way. That's cool. That's actually a subset. I couldn't fit them on the slide. But she has worked with those technologies. Now that looks a little bit more impressive, right? Somebody who has experience, actual practical experience applying those technologies into the marketplace, you start seeing, I'm gonna pay a premium for that person to work on my project, right? Regardless of whether she's an employee or a consultant, she's getting a premium because she knows all those things. And here's where it gets really interesting. These are the clients she's done it for. CVS, right? You got a $147 billion company. Samsung out of Korea. She was working with the Korean operations there. They're a $180 billion company. Baker Hughes Oil Service Company, another $10 billion company. There's some serious clients on that list. These are global, top of their business sort of clients. She's applied those technologies for those clients. Now what do you think she's worth in the marketplace? Right? Same person, same talent. She had the same raw talent when she came out of school. But now she's got that industry experience that locally or internationally she's going to be able to use to have real value. So that we can do from here. That is where we can be competitive in the job marketplace using services and getting this type of experience. So how do you get that high quality experience in Jamaica? I would like to draw attention to this Calico Challenge for the students in the room who are coming up through the ranks. Palisado's Foundation is funded by the diaspora, Jamaican diaspora, to allow young students to come in and work on open source projects for the summer. They get a stipend. It's really great. That gives you experience working on world-class projects, the type of software that people will recognize, and it's available right here in Jamaica. So those types of programs are impressive because they give you experience. They're not just teaching you a programming language. You're getting experience. You can say, I worked on a real program, something that's out there in the marketplace, and it has to be done to world standards. I would also say that we have seen the emergence. I mean, we've been at this 10 years, but sort of in the more recent years, we've seen a number of technology service companies come out of the woodwork that are focused on working with diverse customers overseas, right? So we have, even here, right, Malarka and his team doing, client work for customers in California. We have, obviously some quality assurance companies, security companies that are working both in the Caribbean and around the world. Those are places where you can get really good international exposure and lots of good experience. And in the age where everything is changing, you can get a lot of experience even working within one organization because there's going to be so much going on. So I wouldn't want to preclude you, but when you're shopping around for your first employer or your next employer, you need to be working for a company that takes these people development issues to heart and is looking for exposing you to the best sort of opportunities. So if you get that, if I work with 2 or 3 financial institutions in Jamaica with differing projects, differing technologies, I'm going to have a very strong experience-based resume that will be able to be sold in the services industry. So this last piece, again, is more for the students, so we have some. As you look forward, there's a temptation when you first start out. My full-time job is getting people ready to create value in their careers so they can compete in the world marketplace. That's all I do, all day long. That's all I care about. How do I create talent that we can sell at a premium in the world market? That's it. So one of the things I've noticed is when you're young in your career, the thing you focus on is, what technology should I learn? Hear it all the time. What's the next technology? What technology should I learn? What's hot? What's coming up? And what I would say is, it takes a lot of maturity, but that's the wrong question to ask. What you need to be figuring out is, what segmentation am I going to use? What am I going to focus on? What industry am I going to work in? And this can be hugely impactful. Your first job, if you're working in finance or utilities or technology or some particular industry, you're likely to continue working in that industry. You're likely to continue seeing patterns in that industry that you're going to work in. Similarly, what type of business problem do you enjoy solving? It takes a while to figure that out, but once you figure out the combination of these things, so say, for example, I like working on retail type customers and I work in the data insight space. So this is actually one of our people here. If you're one of the students in the crowd, Matt at the back, put up your hand, Matt. There's Matt. This is actually one of the things that Matt does. He's an expert in data insight, so big data, all those types of things, and has a lot of experience in the retail space. He decided he was going to get into putting together an analytics solution for search, which essentially means if you're running a search on your commerce website or your retail organization, you want to know how it's working, you're going to use some technologies. So in this space, by choosing these 2 things, these are the technologies he expects the guys on his team to learn. So rather than starting from the technology and figuring out where to apply it, you start from where you're applying it and then figure out the technologies. Does that make sense? That's very important. If there's nothing else for the young people coming up, try to figure out where that's going to be, and try for your first job to get into an industry that you like and working on the types of problems that you like, because that will make sure that you're set up for long-term career success. Cool? That's it. I think I'm done on time. Do you have time for questions? There's a microphone at the back. Anyone? I'm not all doom and gloom. No? All right. Everybody's shy. The networking market. It's like the system administration market. I mean, there's always going to be some need for this, but as the networks themselves become intelligent, they can be administered remotely, right? I can sit there and have a managed services provider do a lot of the work for me in terms of my network management. And when I'm really connecting from a phone to a SaaS offering, a SaaS provider, there's not as much need in my infrastructure for that networking. Now, the challenges that are coming in those SaaS providers are incredibly interesting, right? Running, scalable, hyper-scalable computing facilities is incredibly difficult. So those who are at the top of their game and are actually working in those SaaS providers, the complexity of what's happening is insane. But to the outside user, they simplified. I just need an SSL connection to a website, and I can either consume services or I can actually connect and interact with the site itself, and I don't really need as much from a network infrastructure perspective. Now, one thing to recognize is I'm speaking a little bit to a certain scale of customer, right? Did you know, this is an interesting fact, did you know the top 5,000 companies in the world, the global 5,000, spend 60% of all IT expenditures in the world? That's crazy. That means there are 5,000 customers in the world that spend more than half of all the money that's spent in IT. So you got to recognize that fact in what you're looking at. So I'm talking about customers in general, where they're going to consume these things. When you get to a certain size of enterprise and you're actually bringing this stuff in-house or you're providing these services yourself, then those, that's going to be obviously much more in demand in those organizations. But for the average non-technology company, those things are moving out, they're being outsourced. And that's why there's a lot of talk about security these days. I'm curious to see, and I'm not going to make any predictions, but as more and more things move to the cloud, the burden of security moves on to someone else, right? And that may in fact accelerate that, because keeping security expertise in-house is very hard. It's very high in demand. If you want to do today, security is hot. But as more and more of these things move into the cloud, and you can have a limited number of security experts managing that, although they're higher profit targets, they're better targets, they're actually easier because you have the talent to manage them. And so you're going to see less and less of that necessarily required at the endpoints and more in the cloud offering. Again, I'm so negative, right? Sorry about that. That's it? Oh. We got one more.
One of those company tools that they spoke of. I think you represented, I've been an IT software developer for 40 years, okay? Recently the government, the tax authorities here made an announcement that they were targeting software companies. I think your talk gave a clear reason why it's so difficult to run a software business in this country. Okay? I just wanted to get up and say there are many of us here who share your belief, your experience. Okay?
Frustration, maybe.
Yeah, at this point, I've closed down a 25-year-old company out of sheer frustration with corporate Jamaica and the government. Because the world is a big place, and software companies can solve our employment problems. It's particularly unique for me in that it employs males. And in Jamaica, males are in trouble. And I know it's vogue to be gender neutral and so, but this industry is the last bastion of hope for men.
I have a different opinion on that. I believe, I think it's actually quite remarkable that we have, in our office at least, a strong representation of women in technology. Globally, it's not the norm. Perhaps it's, here it is actually more gender balanced than I've seen in a lot of places, and I'm actually quite happy to see it being gender balanced because these are high paying, careers, stable careers that I feel empower women. So I have a different opinion on that, but it's not, it's all about perspectives, different perspectives. But as far as the frustration point of dealing with it, this is not solely something the technology sector alone can solve. We have to make a concerted effort between, industry, the practitioners of IT and the technology, and the government in order to move this forward. And you're right, we have felt a little bit of targeting by the government this past year, but we have done very well. We have a very strong financial team, but it's been a bit interesting because people are looking for revenue wherever they can find it, and I think there's a lot of room for improvement, but we can lead that change. I believe that the private sector, young talent, we can lead that kind of change so that we can build a profitable technology sector in Jamaica. Thank you. We're gonna have a break now?
No.
Oh, no, he's here. All right.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Jeff is not all doom and gloom. Typically, he's a cheery guy, great guy to get along. I encourage you, I don't know, Jeff, if you're doing tours at Real Decoy, I think that it will be quite interesting to tour through your organization. I found it fascinating.
We have a table over there. If you want to talk to any one of us in a Real Decoy shirt and talk about coming over, that'd be great.
Excellent, excellent.
Classes, anyone. There's Matt.
Something to think about. Thank you very much, Jeff.